Welcome to the Talking Timelines podcast. We are four women with 4 points of view and 4 accents with one common goal: to share insights and information about what's going on in the world from a higher consciousness perspective. No BS, no PC, just lots of ideas that you won't hear on mainstream media. We chat, we laugh, and most of all, we shed and share light. Join us each week as we talk timelines.
Hi everyone, welcome to Talking Timelines episode 8. And today we're going to be looking at things to do with religion, and in particular the ascended master Jesus. There's a lot going on out there, guys, that you need to know about. And before I go into this, just letting you know that I'm just the messenger. We're just passing on information that's been coming through because we feel that you guys need to know about it. There's stuff going on out there. There's a lot of predictive programming, subliminal messages, all kinds of traps on the ascension process for people. And I will be sharing a big one here with you today. So it's not about judgment. I'm open to everyone's different religions. I've got different religious friends all over the world. So it's not about judging at all. It's about giving you a heads up so you know how to protect yourself more. Okay, so the 8 main religions out there, I read a book about this recently, are Catholic, Christian, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Wicca and witchcraft, the New Age movement, what people call the New Age movement, Jehovah's Witnesses, and the satanic stuff. And Jesus is involved in a lot of these. So Muslims believe that there is only one true God, Allah. Christians believe that there are 3, so the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Muslims also believe that salvation is based on human effort, so your good deeds override your bad deeds. But the Christians don't believe salvation is earned. They believe that it's a gift from God, made possible because Jesus Christ died for their sins on the cross and then rose again. Islam teaches Jesus was a major prophet, but that he was below Muhammad and not a god as such, as in Christianity. Muslims also believe that the Bible has been corrupted and that the Quran is the final word of God. Islam teaches Jesus did not die on the cross. Instead, he ascended into heaven and that Judas died in his place. So there's a lot of different belief systems around Jesus Christ. Some people in the Christian Catholic Church believe Jesus to be a god as well, to be another form of God. And in Buddhism, there is no personal God. They believe in self-refinement to enlightenment and going into something called nirvana, in the void. Now, I've done a lot of deep meditations and shamanic journeying and stuff like that. And I've actually been into this nirvana void. And it was an inquiry I made, because when we leave this lifetime, we've got choices, whether we teach in spirit, whether we reincarnate, whether we go to nirvana. And I wanted to see what nirvana was. So I asked to astral project there. And it actually looked like a big empty space with all these enlightened masters sitting in the lotus position in stasis. They were just floating in the air in stasis. And I thought, no, that's not for me. That looks really boring for the rest of eternity. So I have been into that level of consciousness to have a look at it. So we've got all these different belief systems around Jesus. And this is what I've been finding out that's going on out there. So a lot of you know about a book I read, a Illuminati book about MK Ultra mind control, trauma-based mind control. And the reason I read it is because as a therapist, I was intrigued into the different levels of consciousness that they're creating these altered personalities, so that I can help people out of it. If you know how it's been structured, you can take it apart. And that's why I was studying it. But I found out a lot of more information in there that I didn't really know about before. And one in particular was saying that there has been a demon created. And remember, we're all creators. So the shadow aspects out there of the 1%, that what people will call these secret societies, have apparently created a demonic entity called Jesus that answers to the name of Jesus. Now, I know a lot of people are still working with that energy and they're calling in Jesus to work with them. And the reason I wanted to share it today is it's important that you're calling the right one, because I'm witnessing people out there that are all of a sudden becoming born again. And the negative aspect of this entity seems to be making people very pushy, like they're pushing stuff onto other people that they're correct and everyone else is wrong. And that doesn't feel right to me at all. So what it says in the book is that there is a demon, and it's very clear that's been created with the name Jesus. So if you are working with Jesus out there, be very careful that you're being specific in what you're calling to you. So either calling the 100% light Jesus or the neutral Jesus to come work with you, being specific. When I very first starting on this over 20 years ago, in a meditation, what appeared to be Jesus came to me. And I just said, no, I'm not interested in, because I associated Jesus with the church and I'm way beyond all that. But when he smiled at me, he had one black tooth. And that's how I knew it was the shadow aspect. It wasn't the pure one. So just being vigilant if you're, meeting ascended masters, archangels, anything like this in your meditations or your journeys, and being specific about what you're calling in is going to protect you to a degree. And I remember about 6 or 7 years ago, and the same thing was being said about people using the word Lord when they, the Lord our God. That had been, there was spell put on that called in Satan instead of God. And I remember people saying then you needed to call in or talk to Heavenly Father rather than just saying the word Lord. And if you watch, these kind of celebrities that are being labeled out there at their music events and all these kind of satanic dances and outfits they had on, they use the word Lord a lot. And that's not referring to God, source, the light, neutral God that we're thinking of. It is referring to that other entity. So I wanted to share this with people today so that you've got something to protect yourself with and just being aware of what's going on. Anyone got anything they'd like to bring into this?
So, Janine, I'm really curious. How would somebody know that they're calling in the darker Jesus? Like, what are some of first of all, how would they know? What are the implications if they're calling in this darker one? Like, what do they need to be aware of? Yeah, I'm really curious because I'm sure a lot of people may have the question too, if they're used to doing this, and then it's like, well, what difference does it make?
Yeah, what's going to feel different? Well, the differences that I'm noting in other people that I'm seeing this happen to is an urge to push, that their beliefs onto other people. The frequency can feel slightly off. So if you get a kind of nervous feeling in your stomach, like a flutter in your stomach, that's your body trying to tell you something's not right. If you get some people, when their spirit guides come in and things like that, they get a nice kind of like the side of their cheek has been stroked gently by an angel kind of feeling. If that feeling that you normally get when you call in is not there anymore, being aware of that. Over the years, particularly the last 5 years, there's a lot of implant stuff and all sorts of stuff going on social media. And I even had experience where I know that someone or something was pretending to be my sister who is in spirit and talking to me as if it was her, trying to like using her voice and frequency to give me messages. But my internal, I call it my BS-ometer, was going off in my gut like something's not right. And then my sister wouldn't have said something like that. So just trusting any twitches, anything that makes you feel a little bit unnerved, trust your gut feeling, trust your intuition that something can be off because it's very cleverly done. And there was a program, I think it was on Prime about 3 years ago, called the Pentaverate. And even in there, they were saying that they've got the influences under control. They've got the mediums under control, because we've spoken about these resonant frequencies that can come in and speak through people. They can actually change the words that people are saying, like the deep fake videos and stuff like that. So it's a slight adjustment in the frequency, a slight gut feeling usually is what you're going to be picking up on. Okay.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed about some pretty popular people out there, I mean, popular in like the spiritual world, and there's a couple that they've actually Doreen Virtue being one of them. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's some other ones that maybe not as well known. And what happens is that it seems like it's like overnight they just had this revelation and like, oh my God, and literally. And then what happens is that that's it can not only does it consume them, and like you said, they're pushing it, but it seems like they've completely given their power away and almost like they've lost their identity. So I
Yeah.
think that's something for people to look out for, is that if there's someone that they may have followed in the past or someone that they got inspiration from, if they see this sudden shift, I would question that, because it usually doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, and a lot of people were questioning it when it happened to, to Doreen Virtue as well, because she stopped with all the cards and everything that
Oh
she was
my God,
making. She just
everything.
went against everything she'd done over the decades before. And the other thing on here that bothers me a little bit is some people try to put me into the New Age movement, and I'm not, because New Age beliefs is that Jesus was an ascended master and all is one and one is all. I look at the one is all and all is one thing as a scientific quantum physics fact. It's not a movement or a belief. It's a fact now that everything is connected, everything is entangled, and that creation is one field of consciousness. So there's labels being put on people there that I disagree with. And as you can see, the Jesus comes into quite a few of the different religions. So it's bounded around a lot. And I think people need to just be a bit more aware of it, because this spiritual war is on and it's still on. People are sitting back thinking because COVID stopped that we're all right, and the fluffy bunny crowd is saying it's all about love, and it's not all about love. Love is the heart resonance, it's the frequency of the heart. But I've got a chart here with the colours on, and I've counted 9 or 10 different colours higher than the heart, than the love that most of the teachers out there are teaching. Now if we go to the heart center and everyone gets heart or Christ consciousness in, which is actually higher heart, then so people are saying we need the 144,000 to get heart centered, and that's going to elevate the whole planet. That's the event everyone's talking about. That when we hit that figure, it's like poof, we're going to wake up the next day and everything's completely different. And it is potentially a possibility. But I encourage people to go higher than that, because when we're going higher than the heart chakra, we're going into the higher heart chakra, which is aquamarine in color. Then we've got the light blue of the throat. We've got the indigo blue for the third eye. The crown is violet. And when you go above that, you're into silver. For the corpuscle, you're into the soul star is like a pearl color. So, that pearl color can be brought in. And we've got the stellar gateway, which is gold, the void, which is black, and the seed, which is brilliant white. So you've got all these colors higher than the heart chakra. And if people are being taught to just stay at the Jesus level in your heart chakra, it's actually holding back people that are capable of going a lot higher than that are capable of bringing that, clearing the next, levels above that, and bringing their source energy into their heart and being source beings. Like, that's a higher frequency. If we do that, depending on how high the people get, let's say they go to the pearl level, soul star level, or round about there, we don't need 144,000. We could get away with 100 people at that level. And those that go even higher than that into the seed, you would probably only need 3 people. And they're so powerful that they can change the whole matrix together. So that's why I teach about this, and about being careful about thinking, going to the level of, the Christ consciousness is you've made it, you're there. because that's not the truth. We can go a lot higher than that in our ascension process. So anyone else got anything they'd like to share?
There's just been a lot of emphasis on gold and silver lately, and and then you were talking about gold and a silver
Hmm.
and a gold, level higher.
Yeah,
Um, and it just made me think of that. Sometimes we think gold and silver, the meaning could be, this metal, that's worth money. But in reality, what we're all really talking about is our consciousness, our level of
yeah,
consciousness. That's what I was trying to emphasize, because there is a lot of talk about, the value of gold and silver, the golden age.
hmm,
There's a lot of that out there right now. And so we're
exactly.
right. And so we're, the way we've been brought up, and we're fighting against this, not really fighting, but the system that we have been brought up in, and we don't know the complete truth. That sometimes one thing means gold and silver over us to the layman means one thing, but what we're trying to get to in that higher consciousness is really what that gold and silver means.
Yeah,
That
exactly. The
makes
gold,
sense.
like, yeah, like the gold. We hear people talk about, heart of gold
Mhm.
as well, which is it's a very high frequency, and it's stepping in when we're going into that pearly white. It's stepping into source God frequency, which
Mhm.
is even higher. So this is what I'm seeing when I'm looking on social media, and when I'm looking on, I keep an eye what's going on Netflix and Tubi and stuff like that, because I'm very interested in what's going into the mass consciousness, and because that's what I work on from my level. And there is a lot of pushing the Jesus stuff at the moment. Particularly one documentary I watched was about Jesus as a feminist. So, they're trying to sell him as a feminist now. And now he really cared about women, because of Mary Magdalene was allowed in with the disciples to listen to the mysteries and the teachings and stuff like that. There's actually 14 apostles, the book I read. Two of them were with women, both the mothers, Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, and both the Marys, I mean. So there's a lot of that being pushed at the moment. And people need to just be cautious about it, because there's a lot of people out there that are ready to go to a higher level, that they've been in that Christ consciousness for years and years and years. Then, like, where do I go from here? There's some very beautiful souls out there that may be being held back because of this information. It's like that's not the be all and end all, that there are higher frequencies to go to, and you can't fake God. That's not going to be easy for anyone to fake in that respect. That's why all of my journey, I worked in the beginning with what I call God the First Source and Center, and Archangel Michael, because I did a lot astral traveling through all these different dimensions, and that's what my second, third, and fourth books were about, based on my diaries. But I soon realized that these things can all, there's light and dark, and they can all be interfered with. And I started to tap into how clever whoever is, out there trying to slow things down is, when they're taking everything's recorded on the internet. So people's voices can be used in deep fake and stuff like that. And all sorts is going on at the moment. So why wouldn't they create a fake Jesus for people? Because many years ago, when I got into the healing side of it with energy healing, I went to the masters that taught me and said, these symbols, they put symbols in your chakras when you study Reiki or Sekkim or anything like that. I said, there's something wrong with these symbols. And I'd only been doing it a year. And I was basically told, who do you think you are? I've been doing this for 30 years and you've been doing it for a year. And I was like a little bit taken aback, but I thought, I trust my gut. And 8 years later, I met that same master, and she told me I was right, that they had to recall everyone in and take their symbols out. I said, it just made sense to me. If you're dark and you want to slow down the healing process, putting black magic on the symbols that they're putting into their clients to pollute them just seems like it's a kindergarten move in that respect, people have sat back and thought that this ascension process is just going to be all love and light and fluffy, and have no sense of reality that some of the richest people on the planet are fighting to keep a hold and a control over humanity. This is a war that we're in. It's not just a fluffy bunny, tell everyone you love them and we're all going to ascend. It's not as simple as that. And there's a lot of that mentality being shared out there, which we've touched on before. That's all I have to say on it. But I thought it was just so important that people needed to know about it, so that they can at least make some more choices. I don't call in anything in between me and Source One now. I don't communicate with spirits or spirit guides, or other than my higher consciousness, what people call your higher self, and that connection is very clear.
It's really interesting because there's one particular person who's a very, I don't want to say the name, but has a very big social media platform, who recently has become all about Jesus. And what's very interesting is that she also says that this is not the time to be connecting with higher dimensional beings. So fascinating that this is kind of happening at the same time. Oh, don't connect with them because it's chaos out there, or there's a lot of dark stuff, or there's a lot of, it's not safe to do that now, but go to Jesus, go to
Yeah,
Yeshua, go there. So that's what there's something there that just felt really, really off, that it
yeah,
basically within the same sentence, the same
yeah,
message is coming across.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and if you watch it on social media, there are some people on there that all they do all day is point out all the satanic stuff in the world, and that's what their feed is. This is Satan, they're Satan, they're there. It's like, you need to get that out of your DNA, and you won't be seeing that anymore. Or, well, it won't trigger you where you feel like you've got to tell the world and point the finger that these are the bad guys. Because when you understand how it really works, there are no bad guys. There's just reflections and programs in a simulator, a holographic simulator, that are just playing a part, that are encoded to behave in certain ways in order to get responses, to work through karma. When you really understand that, you stop pointing the finger. You stop doing things like that. And I've been on some sites there where they're bashing transgenders. We talked about that in our other podcast. There's no need to do it. And that side of religion is very judgmental. Most of these religions, one of the things that is taught is not to judge, and they're all judging. Judging themselves better than everyone else, and theirs is correct. There are 5,000 different Christian churches in America alone, 5,000 different separate, who all think that their one is the right one. And I was listening to Joe Dispenza last year, and he was talking about the Anunnaki messing with our DNA and creating hybrids and inserting the worship gene into our DNA to enslave us so that we would worship the Anunnaki. That got me into a meditation where I was like, where did religion come from? The answer I got was Anunnaki. They created it as well. As they started to get greedy, they fell from grace, they started to get weaker. So they needed something that was going to help them control the masses. And that's where religion came in. And all these different religions are, I can't say man-made, because the Anunnaki were gods, but they came to Earth as gods. And that's what the statues are in Egypt and places like that. And I believe that this was created to enslave humanity, as the worship was wearing off, because they were losing their power, their hold. And you can see it even in movies like Gods of Egypt and stuff like that. These things play out. In that movie, Ra, the sun god, is fighting the same entity every night, which looks like a big grey cloud with teeth, and it's the same thing. So even in the movie, they show you duality. It's like God fighting evil every night, same old thing, stuck in a loop. And I watched it and thought, well, is that darkness a reflection of the sun god Ra? It has to be, in a duality. So it made me really think about, where did it all come from? And I've read other stuff as well about it being created by high priests in order to control the masses because they were losing power. So
It's
all
also a
of
way to it's also a way to keep us divided
yeah,
because everyone so identifies with their religion that their religion is best.
Yes.
And so instead of unifying people that listen, believe whatever works for you, believe that, it's like, no, mine is the correct one. So
mm-hmm,
it's a way of really creating divisiveness and wars and really giving your power away to something else because people, one of the things that I never could wrap my head around is the statement God fearing. You'd see it on dating sites. People would say, I'm da da da, I'm God fearing. And that term alone
yeah,
seems no, if there is, if you really think about it, why would you have to fear a God that's created you, that loves you, that is supportive of you?
Mhm.
Why should you fear it? So, I mean, that to me is such a program
yeah,
that that was instilled in some point. And the fact that people actually repeat that tells you the power that it has.
yeah, exactly. We're told all this stuff, and it's pounded into us to believe it. But we're moving into an era now where that's got to go. The only way we can get rid of Satan is to get rid of religion because that's where it came from. And until people realize that, it's not about turning your back on God, because there's still a higher supreme being, if that's your belief system. That to me, that supreme being is a level of it's a field of consciousness that is malleable based on what we've got in our heart centers. And we're moving more and more towards that manifestation of that heaven on earth that it was meant to be in the first place. But we have to do the work. We've got to level up to do it. So I think that's going to be one of the next big things that starts coming out in the media. There's already exposure on Netflix to certain religious systems being involved with trafficking and stuff like that now at the core of them. So this is going to affect people in a big way. And when it starts coming out, just how corrupt that system is, there's going to be a lot of really, upset people out there that are going to need support, because if you are indoctrinated into that dogma so much, it's like pulling your comfort blanket off people. It's going to be really difficult for people to be able to move forward.
Yeah, I think it's even more so than a comfort blanket. I mean, for a lot of people that are having a really hard time living in the 3D world, just making sense of it, the fact that there is potentially something that's higher there that they can feel this comfort around, that kind of they feel support, or there's just some way that gives them comfort, which is fine. I mean, I think if that's what religion serves for you, that you feel that there's something bigger that kind of makes sense of all this insanity in the world, then that's wonderful. It's when that has been shown that it's not really what it is, I think we're going to see levels of psychosis. I
Oh yeah,
really do. I
yeah,
think it's just going to be that people are not going to know what to believe and why they're here and what's the point. I really hope that it doesn't get to that point, in that way. I just think there'll be maybe a higher awareness, higher consciousness where it won't be so dramatic as if it's like on the news one night kind of thing. But
yeah.
I have a feeling that people are just going to lose it.
There's a lot of people that we look up to in the religious field that I think a lot of us are going to be, disappointed. We're going to see a lot of disappointment, as Laura was saying. It's going to be big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
especially if they're tied in with the 501c3 tax
What's that?
yes,
designation.
yes,
Yeah, that 501c3. So a lot of the churches that have basically, like, if you can go to any of their websites or any, like Joel Osteen, they've basically sided with the other side that they do favors for. So it's 501c3 are the ones that have been most corrupted.
yes. Yes, because so in order to become 501c, you're tax deduct, you're tax exempt is what you are.
Yes.
But a lot of other stuff comes with that.
Yeah. So look back when COVID first started with the lockdowns, and the reason why we didn't hear like pretty much crickets from the churches is because they were controlled by that 501c3 by the government. And so many of them didn't want to lose it. And so a lot of them kept quiet. And so, like, anyways, on their websites, you can see if you scroll right down to the bottom, which ones are, because they mentioned that on there. Yeah.
Well, also when Houston had had a hurricane come through, I think it was Harvey, it was just devastating. And they asked Joel Osteen to open up his big mega church and to the people, and he wouldn't.
Really?
Yeah.
He would not. He said they just had the carpets replaced.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I remember listening to Joel Osteen when I was down in Sava used to try and get me involved in it. So I was listening to, I was polite, but he was worth 40 million 7 years ago when I was down there. I remember looking him up. So he's worth 40 million. He's not prepared to buy new carpets for the people that put that 40 million in his pocket.
Hello.
Very Christian. Very Christian.
And that's just the public number that is provided. So, a lot of these people have offshore, structures set up, as well as trusts that those numbers are disclosed. So you can even, jack that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mega churches are probably what we're going to see the biggest. I mean, even JD, is it JD Jakes, or who's involved with Diddy,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
it's all coming
been
out.
to a lot of Diddy parties.
I read something this week, or somebody sent me an email about it. I read something about they are going into the Vatican Library. Does anyone know anything about that? So you heard anything about that? Yeah.
There was talk a few years ago, like about how they went in there, and there was in the tunnels of the Vatican, there's quite a lot that has been kept there from away from us too. There's scrolls too, same thing. The scrolls that are held by the NSA that for years and years that have been kept from humanity too, that definitely I think would benefit us, that of course, one of those things that they've kept a secret. Yeah.
You said scrolls. I thought you said squirrels.
I thought you said
squirrels.
squirrels. I thought you said squirrels also. That's really funny.
Yeah, scrolls.
I was thinking
squirrels.
What are they doing with squirrels in the Vatican?
Yeah. So there's more to come out about that. So there's some people like Mark Taylor. He's he foresaw so many different things happening that have come to fruition. And great guy, used to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
Fire guy. And he has kind of a documentary that's called, I believe, The Revenant, and part 1 and part 2. And it's just stunning to see like how much of that basically he put God's words onto paper, and through his personal experience. He's also someone that says, watch out for the churches. And I think what you had said a few minutes ago, Janine, near the beginning of our talk today, is that I just felt in my gut. It's just my gut was screaming at me that this is, not the thing. And it's, I think that we all need to be listening to our gut and use discernment from our gut.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not over yet. As I was saying earlier, there's a lot of people thinking, oh, we've made it to 5D, we're here. We're like, no, we're not. We need to get no, we're not.
We're
on our way. Yeah, we're on our way.
We're on our way, yeah. And they want to get into a reality where there's no war. Ninth dimension is the one to head for. There's no war programs in that holographic layer. So
I personally believe that's where we're going. Yeah.
A lot of people are not going though, so it's going to be an interesting ride. I try to, we think about, okay, so what's happening with the people that are staying in 3D and we're in whatever dimension we're in? We can still see them, we're still aware of them, but there's no connection there, that non-source player thing going on that we've been talking about. But from what's being propagated through TV series and stuff like that, there's some pretty dark stuff being, foretold, because it's predictive programming. all the time. So people need to be careful what they're watching, and always making the statement, I intend to observe and not absorb on any level of consciousness, past, present, and future. That's what I say now if I'm going to watch anything on a screen, because the propaganda is huge. It's not good what's being shared out there at all. That documentary that I've been watching is basically them saying that the military industrial complex have taken the taxpayers' money and built these bunkers all over the world as, you know, escape bunkers for nuclear war, and trillions of dollars, while American troops are using old rifles and driving older vehicles, because they're not getting the money that they, you know, it was, people think the money was going to war, the taxes and stuff like that, but that's going to be gone soon as well. Income tax will be gone soon. You can see it now. There's executive orders getting closer and closer and closer. So you know, that's going to pull the rug from the money supply chain to these things.
We're in a beautiful time right now. I see that there's so much transparency that's, you know, coming. It's here, but I think it's just starting. And I just think that it's almost going to feel like this is the way it should have always been, where we're going, and it's going to have a trickle effect to all corners of the world. You could see it, you could feel it, and it feels good.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, also, a lot of people don't see it that way because they see it as, you know, I'm just seeing it, whether it's friends or people I know or social media, is people don't see it that way, and they're seeing it as they're in fear, and they're seeing it as, oh my God, everything's going to hell. So there's going to be that period, I think, where people are just like in shock, like, what does this mean? Oh my God, they're taking all these things away from us, not realizing that the system needs to change. The systems that weren't working need to come apart. That's not pretty. It's never pretty. So we're in the destruction phase, and people that's all they're seeing. And I look at everything like, okay, it's all playing out. So, you know, but I think the masses right now are freaking out. I think they're just, well, in the US anyway, it's just like,
yeah, there's a lot going on, and that, you know, all this talk about Canada becoming the 51st state, and like the Canadians do not like Trump, the TVs do not like Trump, you know, these documentaries are hammering him, and then it all comes at me, and then I've got the other side of it where he's, you know, leading the white hats, and you know, he's breaking down these systems. He had to get inside to break down those systems. So it's weird how some people are seeing him as, I don't like to use the word savior, but you know, the good guy doing good things, breaking the system down. And I remember hearing years ago saying, you know, if you want to bring an empire down, you have to do it from the inside. If you do it from the outside, they can rebuild it. If you do it from the inside, it's gone. You've got to get into the core, and he's in the core. That, you know, he's in there doing that. And then other people, because of the media, are seeing him as this dictator and likening him to Hitler. And when you sit back and see just the different perceptions and how people are being brainwashed into, you know, hating on this person they've never met, and they just believe it. They just, because it was on the 6 o'clock news, well, that's it must be true. Still
Well, and that's why they're not awake. I do feel like there's more of us awake than the people that we keep getting, the people that, you know, are kind of crazy. That seems to what always gets on the media, but that they're just a minute. They're very small compared to the, you know, 70 million people that put Trump into office. Those people know what's going on.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So it's just like it's just like the whole, you know, the racist thing, you know, affirmative action, you know, only 16% of the US is Black. So you can't have, you know, half, you know, when it comes to jobs, it can't be half and half, because the population doesn't even allow for that.
Yeah.
You know, when, you know, 60% of the population's whatever, Caucasian, whatever. And then, another 10% is Latin American, and then 16% is the, African American. You can't, I don't know, just don't get off on stuff. And, it's like the balance isn't there. And I don't think the balance is there with, all these crazy people being put on our media channels as, that he's a dictator, he's this, he's that. It's not fair, you know.
Yeah, but the media is not fair, is it? It's
No, it hasn't been
that's
completely.
that's another thing that needs to be stripped down.
Yes, it's slowly getting there, but it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
It's
Because
it's starting because you
yeah.
see people like Joy Reid, she was fired yesterday.
Yeah, I
And
know.
right. And so the thing is that it's just like, and I've someone that doesn't watch her because I just listened to her once or twice. And it's like, this lady is not nice.
No,
She's
it's so
not,
much hate.
she's got so much hate. And so if she's surprised, and some of the people that follow her, and it's also due to low viewership. So a lot of these people are getting canned. And
Mhm.
so so this is why I say it's a beautiful time to see this transparency right up in your face, and to see that we are making progress. Is just there's like, for that type of divisiveness with vile, like just you could see clearly it's an agenda of divide the people, hate, and all that. And then to say that this person, the leader of the country, the leader of the United States, is such a toxic Nazi, this or that. And meanwhile, these people are showing themselves front and center. And so it's nice to see that they're being, you're finished.
Yeah, you're canned.
People, and yeah, and because of that, I think it's a low viewership, in which the good news is that people are catching on that, I don't feel good listening to this
Yeah.
person,
Well, it's not. It's not.
right?
You don't feel better when you've listened to this person. You feel
Mhm.
horrible.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I did hear also with Whoopi too. Whoopi Goldberg, from The View. I heard that she's got her papers as well. And
Good.
so I haven't verified that.
Yeah.
Joy Reid I verified, but to
Who's
see
who's
such
Joy? Who's Joy Reid?
Joy Reid she's a journalist for ABC or NBC,
Uh,
and they gave her papers
Mhm.
yesterday. And so
you can
that to
tell
me,
how long it's been since I've watched television. I don't even know who
yeah,
these
so
people are.
yeah, and I don't watch them either, but it's just that on the podcast, that's the news, because it's big news that no one wants to hear this person anymore due to low viewership. And then she gets on with tears in her eyes. And like when you hear her, she's almost like a cult leader. And so I thought, like, how could people feel good about listening to this person that, fragments them or puts them in such a spewy, essence, no matter when they hear it during the day. And it's just like, but as soon as I was watching her with her, like, this has happened to me, and she's got tears in her eyes, and we got to still fight, and this and that. And it's like, you wonder why you're taken out. It's just like we're moving into a new earth right now. And you're not part of that.
Right.
mm,
Right.
Your
yeah,
A
kind is not part
beautiful, harmonious, joyful new earth, and all this just hate speech and all this stuff there's no place for it.
yeah. I've tried many times, and I've reached out to some pretty famous people about, help me to bring the one portal um, to remove racism, which it could easily.
No, they
But
don't
I
want to
don't
hear
even.
that.
They don't get back to me. It's as if there's got a blindfold on. There's a solution here. At
Well, they
some
can.
point,
Mhm.
I feel it will be used, but obviously they're not ready yet.
No, they wouldn't have a platform to spew their hate
Mm,
if you did. If you were able to erase racism,
yeah,
then what would they talk about?
yeah. Well, there's like you said, the separation is important to keep people weak. That's why it's not encouraged. There's a lot of talk and not a lot of action that actually does something to stop it, because they don't really want it stopped. It's like, many other things like diseases. I watched a documentary on, it was a bit like The Secret, and it was called What If? And I've never been able to find the video. I lent it to somebody and they never gave it back. But in that video, they said 100 years ago there was either 7 or 10 recorded diseases, and either 7 or 10 plants that healed those diseases. Right? Can't remember which way round it was, 7 or 10. Now we've got 100,000 recorded diseases and 500,000 recorded medications, 500,000. And
They're
we're
poisoning
sicker
us.
than ever. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
sicker than ever.
Yes,
You
but
know.
that's turning around. That is turning around.
Well, yeah, it's changing now, but
And,
people ignore the stats. You know, how can you go into a system with statistics like that? It's just craziness.
but I've talked to a lot of, I mean, because I'm into more holistic, ways to, oil of oregano. You should have oil of oregano all the time. Okay, it's a natural antibiotic. It strengthens your immune system. I give it to my grandkids all the time. They haven't been sick this year at all. But I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, just talk. You were saying
Well,
that the
well,
pharmaceutical stuff's going to go.
yes, and then I try to, I talk to people sometimes with, things that they have. I go, there's another way to approach that, besides pharmaceuticals. But it's like they've got a veil over
Yeah,
them. They can't even comprehend doing anything different than what the doctor would tell them, because why would the doctor continue to keep them sick? And they don't understand that the doctors, not all, okay, are still a part of the system. They're part of this draconian system where they get kickbacks for certain medications that they're giving. Oh, what was it during COVID? They were getting what? It was something like $80,000 for every COVID shot they gave. It was just some astronomical amount of money.
yeah, yeah,
So that, not that they needed it, but the doctor said they needed it, but they don't realize that the doctor's getting a kickback,
yeah,
from that shot, and
yeah. There is a
even.
movie.
Mhm.
There's a movie. I think it's on Netflix that exposes all of that, about this single mum that gets a job as a sales rep for the pharmaceutical company, and they end up multimillionaires, but
Mhm.
they lied about a medication and it killed a lot of people. And it's a true story. It was the opioids, I think, it was a cancer treatment, and they started selling it as a migraine treatment. So
Mhm.
people were popping these pills and getting addicted, and they were having heart attacks and dying and stuff like that. And it's based on a true story.
Really.
So it's
Mhm.
getting exposed. You know,
Right.
it is getting exposed. They
And
ended
and
up
and
in prison.
yeah, and in reality, all the person needs is more magnesium. When you
Yeah,
have
it's
massive
amazing.
headaches, it's a
Yeah,
lack of,
yeah,
our body is, it's a lack of, but anyway.
yeah. I
Yes,
use green olives as my
yeah,
natural antibiotic if I need them,
yeah.
and I've given them to my animals as well. And they
Mhm.
work for, I even healed my hamsters in foot infection with one olive, just chopped it into 16 pieces and fed her a piece 3 times a day for a few days, and it healed her foot. So stuff like that is great, and it's anyone can do it. I'll give you the recipe. It's the nice big fat green olives,
Mhm.
the big one. If you take one of those per 35 pound in weight, so if I'm 140 pound, I'd need 4 of them 3 times a day. Not in vinegar, either in oil or lemon juice or something like that. So take 4 3 times a day, I would, for 3 or 4 days. And anything, ear infection, tooth, infection, they clear it up. It's amazing. So I don't eat them as food anymore. I keep them just for medicine, which is rare that I need them. But things happen now and then.
Too much. That would be for food for me too.
You couldn't do it as
I could
medicine.
easily do 4 or 5 a day. Even
Yeah,
6 on a little stick.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. They are good.
With a martini. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Okay, brilliant. All right, so unless anyone's got anything else they want to share, we can wrap it up there, ladies. We good? We are? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was good.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. And we'll see you next time on Talking Timelines. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Disclaimer: the content in this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The views, opinions, and information shared do not necessarily represent those of the hosts, but is provided for additional perspectives. None of the hosts are medical professionals, so we do not dispense medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any health-related issues. And thank you for listening to Talking Timelines.